What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the second ever edition of the Great Wall of Knowledge with former Green Bay Packer Mike Wall and myself. Mike, how we doing?
Doing good, man. I still love that name. Love it.
It cracks me up every time I read the show notes. I'm like, man, this is just perfect. It's perfect. No, we were just talking about it a little bit ago. Enjoyed a pretty good weekend of football. Some not so good games. Not the greatest officiating, but it's part of it all. Bucks over Eagles, Bills over Pats, Bengals over the Raiders yesterday, Niners, who we will be playing, and Chiefs both won. Any takeaways from the games this past weekend?
We were just talking about it. Probably don't need 7 seeds. Probably can give that 2 seed a bye week because those games. It almost takes away from the weekend because the games are just not competitive.
Yep.
I don't know why we need more talking points, but you talk about week 17. You talk about the 7 seeds. It's like we're adding. Sometimes there's addition by subtraction. So maybe we should try that next year. I know they won't, but just a suggestion. And then, the other thing is, and the Raiders Cincy game was a really good game. It was as advertised, and Cincy's probably the better team.
Yep.
So the better team probably won. But that whole thing with the whistle just makes you go, like, how did you – and then their explanation was so poor and so obviously wrong that it's just another one of those situations. And I take everything from a player's perspective, so we inherently don't trust Roger Goodell anyways.
Yeah.
But when the league comes out with stuff, it's always like I always think of Goodell with that clown nose T-shirt from Barstool Sports, just going like, I'm going to say whatever I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? And I just that was just such a clown act. But good football. Otherwise, like there's some good football games yesterday, and certainly like the Niners Dallas game was
that game was.
I mean, what a disaster ending for you realize they shouldn't even gotten to that. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, you got to let Trent Williams get set. Like they're all over TV this morning blaming it on Trent Williams. Like Trent Williams jumped off sides. Like no,
quick.
That Garoppolo didn't let him get set. This exact same thing happened with Dak and was it CeeDee Lamb when he wasn't set? Exact same thing happened. Like. Yeah. You have to get set. You have to allow him to get set. That was asinine at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's tough.
Gives us hope, though, right?
Yeah, I know. 4th and inches, and it's game or not. And then the false start. It's like, really? And then it comes down to obviously Dak doing the QB draw or whatever it was, and then we were just talking about that a second ago. You hand the ball to the ref, you let him spot it, and then you go. But with 14 seconds, that's just too. Everything has to happen perfectly for that play to work.
So every team in the league has a rule, and it's something it's around 16 seconds. Mm-hmm. And it's like we can run X play with this amount of time on the clock and still get a snap off. And I think it's 16 seconds. And so there's that part of it where you're wondering, okay, probably shouldn't have run that play to begin with.
Yeah. And
then you start thinking like, because we run 2-minute drill every single week. They do situational football drills every single week, or at least most teams do. And so when you combine the 14 penalties with the fact that your $140 million quarterback doesn't know to hand the ball to the referee when literally they've been running that same drill since high school. It's just like things happen. This is where like the Greek philosopher Archilochus, right? You don't rise to the occasion to fall to the level of your training. You ever heard that statement before?
Yes.
So this is exactly what you're talking about. When the moments get anxious, you fall back on your lowest level of training. And clearly, like the default level for whatever reason was definitely not the standard or the high enough standard to be successful down there in Dallas town.
Yeah, with Evers being a Cowboys fan, I feel for him because, we were talking about it as the game was going on. It's like Mike McCarthy heartbreaking playoff losses. And they're down there. They already have – instead of just doing the draw, just do 2 shots to the end zone, and it is what it is. And instead, they do the QB draw. They don't let the ref spot it. The ref runs into Dak and the offensive lineman and then moves the ball like 2 or 3 inches to technically spot it. And the game's over. So, no, it's tough. But nothing surprised me this past week. And really, I knew the 49ers would upset the Cowboys. They were small underdogs, whatnot. Saw it yesterday. Cowboys, most penalized team in the league. It showed, talking about penalties. I know the coaches coach, players play, but what is the issue with them committing so many, and especially in the most important game of the year?
Well, there's certain teams that aren't very penalized, right? And they're usually what you would consider, very, very well coached teams. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about. I felt like the Raiders were the most penalized team for like 20 years straight. Right. But I didn't know when the Dallas Cowboys took over that mantle, but you as a lot of coaches will tell you that a player is going to given the opportunity, a player is going to always disappoint you.
Yeah.
And another way to say that would be, if you set the bar extremely high for an elite level athlete, they're going to try to jump over that bar every single time. They might not reach it, but they're going to try to jump over it if you set some expectations.
Right.
On the other hand, if you allow kind of poor behavior, if you set low hurdles, if you're complicit through kind of non-leadership or there's the lack of discipline or consequences to your actions on the practice field, it is inevitable that you're going to have some of these behaviors. And what's crazy is, from a defensive perspective, when you think about some of the defensive holding calls, when you think about the hands to the face, some of the stuff that's going on, it's like they were unnecessary. They were completely unnecessary. You had a lot of the pre-snap penalties that are unnecessary as well, but it really just points to a lack of discipline, not only from the players, but again, someone's got to hold the bag when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem, if you talk about Dallas, it's like, because Dan Quinn is there, because Kellen Moore's getting all these like head coaching looks now, because Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones, you never really know where does the buck stop exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And Mike is a CEO type coach down there. He's not calling plays. So he's in charge of motivating the troops, game management, right? Discipline. And you just start looking at like, man, those are kind of three areas that
aren't that great.
A little bit tough.
Yeah, no, I get it. Tough to see, especially at home with the false starts, all that stuff. You don't have there was a lot of 49ers fans there. I'll give them that. I didn't see a lot of red in the crowd for their whiteout they were trying to do. But like, you're at home, those false starts, those are just, unacceptable, really. Then obviously the QB draw, we're just talking about no timeouts, a little mind blowing. But 49ers coming to Lambeau Field next weekend. The game is on Saturday night, 7:15. Temperature is supposed to be in the teens at kickoff, and as the game goes on, it gets colder. You remember the coldest game you've ever played in, and is it just a mental battle to get through, or what's it all about?
Yeah, especially in playoff football, it doesn't really matter. You see guys looking across the sideline, maybe in a December game when it's cold outside and they don't want to be there. Maybe they're out of the playoffs already, like the playoff run.
Yep.
And that's why I think it affects players a lot. And certainly from a kind of mechanical standpoint, the ball's a little bit harder. Like the receivers still have to catch a frozen ball now. That's a little bit more difficult. The grip might change for the quarterback. But like the ground being hard, it being cold outside, whether to wear sleeves or not wear sleeves, or 3 turtlenecks or 1 turtleneck, like that's just all part of the game. And it's not really that big of a deal if it's the playoffs, because it's one and done. You're playing you're fighting for your life out there.
Right.
So I don't see that being a big issue. I do remember very specifically, though, when we lost that game, I think the first time anybody in Green Bay had lost in like 40 years when it was under 26 degrees, we lost to the Atlanta Falcons. And I remember looking across, because we had beaten them in a close game early in the year, but we had beaten the brakes off them on offense. Like we had run for 200 plus yards and just had a really good game. Right. And I remember it was Patrick Kearney, Coleman, all these guys are looking over, they're hopping up and down on the sideline. They were not cold. And we looked over like, oh man, they're not nervous. Like, it's different today. Like there's something different about them. Right. Yeah. And then I remember we're getting our heads beat in. And I remember one of our guys, we walked over on the sideline and he was just like, I'm so cold. Like he was just like miserable, and it like, that's what happens when you're losing. Like when you're losing, it all comes to the front. Right.
Yeah. No, I get it. I played high school football here in Iowa, and all of our home games were actually in the UNI Dome, so where the University of Northern Iowa Panthers play. So no matter what day or time it was, always 72 degrees, always on turf field.
Nice.
But during the playoffs and later in the year, I obviously played in some 10 to 20 degree games. I personally didn't think they were that bad. I mean, you live here; it's not that terrible. Hopefully the Niners, they'll feel every little hit just a little more, because obviously when you get popped by AJ Dillon, it's not going to feel good. Or when you bounce off his legs late in the game. But like you said, is it really going to matter? Probably not. Everybody's going to be so jacked up that it just doesn't matter. So, Battle of the Bays, Mike. Haven't heard it for quite some time. Battle of the Bays. Last time around, back in week 3, everybody knows how that game ended. Rodgers led the team down, 37 seconds left. Set up Mason Crosby's field goal. The game didn't seem as close as it really was. Up 17-0 before the half. They double up before and after halftime, and then it became a game. They're well coached, solid fan base overall. They're coming in hot. We were talking about them last week being hot, and now they go into Dallas, beat them. Now a chance to go to the NFC title game. Immediate thoughts. Like, what are your immediate thoughts of this Niners team like today?
Well, obviously the health of Bosa, the health of Fred Warner, it makes a big difference on their team. You know, you look at the Niners, they talked about it a lot on TV yesterday, but it was true with us. Like if you can get home with 4, it's a different game.
Yep.
And one thing that we did really well, I think, when we went out to play the Niners is they didn't bother Aaron. Aaron was, especially in the first half, he was allowed to operate.
Yeah.
I think they got to him a handful of times, but I think there's a difference between getting a couple sacks and then just having constant pressure in your face so you can't step up. Right. And so we did a good job blocking our 5 versus their 4, not trying to blitz too much and being able to just kind of stay on schedule with first, second, and third down. That's going to be huge. You know, look, they do a lot. Deebo Samuel's kind of a difference maker right now.
Yeah.
And when you look at how we did from a defensive line standpoint and kind of controlling the box last time, we beat them at the edges, which our expectation is we should beat them all the time. Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith out at the edges. We should win every time. But this is one of those games where Kenny Clark came on the map because he was like from the first snap. I remember he threw Alex Mack in the backfield like 3 yards. Alex Mack's like an all-time great. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, he's here this year. Like it's game time. So we can control that line of scrimmage. That's going to have a lot to do with this game. And you know, I always go back to I think they're a well-coached team. I think because of all the eye candy that they put out and having Deebo Samuel, he's going to be a really tough matchup for us. But George Kittle as well, he could have a big game. But you just look at it like you have to make Jimmy Garoppolo beat you, and you just because you know whether it's the pick he threw yesterday, whether it's the corner route that he missed on the double move on Diggs, or whether it's the fact that he forgot that his left tackle had to get set before he hiked the ball on the snap. Like he's going to give you a chance to beat you, and you just have to take it. And I think it's really, it sounds simple, but I think it's really that easy. Like play smart football. And he's going to give you the ball a couple times or give you some plays.
Yeah, I agree. Well, game on the line, let your guy get set, and you win the game. You don't have to deal with any of this last-second drive down. And they had a legit chance to, 2 shots in the end zone. You never know what's going to happen with a flag or whatever. You get set up on the one. Anything can happen. You said it with Bosa. Little injury issues yesterday. He's in concussion protocol. And with the game being on Saturday, kind of a quick turnaround, short recovery time for him. Defense is stout without Bosa. Like you said, huge loss potentially. Packers get back David Bakhtiari and Josh Myers on the line. Lucas Patrick slides over to guard. I think with or without Bosa, I think our guys will be up for the challenge. Last time around, it was Yasha's first game in for
Jenkins.
Yeah, Elton. And so it's like that first drive was like, oh, shoot. Like Elton's kind of – and then the rest of the game and hear about him. So, I don't know. I feel like with a new combination of the line, whether he's out there or not, control the box, and that's that.
Yeah, Eric Armstead's a really good player, and he lines up over the right guard for most of the game.
Yeah.
When they, if they go for 3 or 4 minutes, he always kind of ends up over that right guard. And it was like actually perplexing yesterday. Like, why would you waste the talent on Zach Martin? Because that's like he's just in the left guard was getting the brakes beat off him. So maybe they felt like they could just win with their other guy. But I think that'll be a good matchup with Patrick moving back over there. And this will be kind of first full game with like a full game of action against a really, really high caliber player. Mm-hmm. That's a matchup you need to look for. And then again, Billy Turner being over there, is it Billy? Is it Dennis Kelly? Like, I think Bosa is going to be able to play, and you just have to assume he's just going to spend the majority of his time over the right tackle, regardless who it is. Yeah. Billy's played him before and had success against him. So those kind of guys get home. They find a way to get home, and whether it's they went off the jump or they're relentless in their pursuit of quarterbacks. And so, you saw it yesterday from Bosa. You saw it yesterday from Micah Parsons on the other side, right? There's some guys that just have a motor, right? And they're just going to get theirs. But as far as game records, I would feel really, if I'm a Packers fan, I'd feel really, really confident about the ability of our offensive line to create holes in the running game, run downhill on these guys, because our double teams kind of neutralize their linebackers and their speed. They have to hold their positions a little bit longer because they're not guys that can come up and butt you in the mouth in the A gap. So I feel good about that. We demonstrated that in the first time we played them in week 3. And then I feel pretty good about our ability to execute in the passing game. So it just, it's going to come down to who wins that matchup ultimately. And I would say we have to be, as well as the Niners looked yesterday, we have to feel pretty good about our matchup. Yeah,
I agree. You saw yesterday with Bosa, like fake chip the tight end and then swooped around, in that A gap and just took Dak down. And it's stuff like that. Like you said, they can get double team. They can do this. But they do something like that, all of a sudden on third down, cause a fumble, or it's, punt, and then huge game-changing play. Another injury for the Niners. Fred Warner left the game yesterday. I saw Ian Rappaport say that re-aggravated an ankle injury he had. He was standing on the sidelines the whole second half, but I watched the video of him walking off. It didn't look good. He was, kind of getting helped, super slow. So obviously Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, two huge pieces overall. I think, like you said with both Bosa, if I were to bet, I'm not a betting guy. If I were to bet they're both playing, you think their chances of playing on Sunday is pretty good?
It would be tough to say you're going to miss that game, even with an ankle. Usually, a high ankle could be a couple of weeks, but there's a lot of things that can happen between now and then. There's a lot of medications you can take on Saturday morning to make sure that you can play. The question is always for the staff and for the athlete. Is Fred Warner at 80%, 75% better than his backup, right? If the answer is yes, he'll probably play, right? And just from what he brings to the table as far as above the shoulders, I would imagine that's the case. So, those guys are really good players. Again, the fact that we're so good inside at our doubles, it kind of to a certain extent, neutralizes their linebackers because they're not these big space fillers. They don't run up and try to run you over in the A gap or the B gap. Running outside, we had success running outside last time. Yeah. We did a pretty good job of kind of controlling the edges. And I think, having Bakhtiari back, Mercedes Lewis obviously being one of the best guys in the league at his position, and the job Lazard does, whether it's running those crack plays or when it's just running like a sweep, you just kind of see we can attack them from different angles depending on what running back's in. And, I try not to worry too much about you plan for Bosa to play, you plan for Warner to play, and then if they're not there, it's like, okay, well, Christmas came early, great, because the second team guy is not nearly as good. But you just kind of prepare. You kind of know what kind of team they are from the last time you played, the last 16, 17 weeks of the season, and so you prepare for that. You prepare that they're going to try to run a bunch of games in between and test your center and your two guards on whether they can pass off stunts. Like left guard for Cowboys, man, he had a rough one yesterday on one-on-ones and also being able to help on switching the games and everything. So our guys have been pretty good at that all year. We're very well coached. And again, it's just the way that our quarterback processes information and gets rid of the ball just makes a huge difference. It really helps that line kind of defeat some of those intricate games.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's switch things over to the offensive side here. Deebo Samuel, all-pro Deebo Samuel, which is crazy. Guy's an absolute beast of a football player. He said to Kyle Shanahan yesterday, I saw this morning, thought it was cool. He said, just give me the ball, I got you, and then went out, scored the rushing touchdown. Obviously a matchup problem for any team. What goes behind all the different ways he can attack you from the receiver position, in motion, in the backfield? How can it be stopped?
Stopped is tough. Stop, because even when he doesn't get the ball, he has your attention. And I think that's where he kind of makes his hay is, how many times you're really going to give him the ball versus, I think at one point in the fourth quarter, he had 9 carries, but was averaging like 7 yards a carry. He had like 9 carries for like 60 yards, 63 yards or something like that. So it's not like he had got 24 carries or 24 touches, but you're always worried about where he's going to be. And that makes Ayuk better. That makes the running backs, more effective. That opens up Kittle. So he's just become that guy that just his presence on the field really hurts you. Just from a body, like the body composition, the way he looks, he just looks like one of those like college hybrid running backs. Right? Do you want to line up in slot? Do you want to line up? I can do whatever you want to do. Just put me somewhere. There's a couple guys in the league that can do this now. I remember there's a kid from Florida. He went to Minnesota years ago. I forgot his name now. And he played for Seattle for a while too, but he was the same kind of cat. Like you can line him up anywhere, man. Just put the ball in his hands and see what he can do.
Can even tell you.
Yeah,
but Cordell Patterson a little bit. Obviously, Cordell, I don't think ever got to that point, but anywhere, line him up anywhere. Now he's a running back, and it's like, well, it's dude. He does good there. He can do good on kick returns. He can do good in the receiver position. Kind of one of those guys where you love to have him on your team, but when you go play him, it's like, fuck this. Just an absolute game record.
This is like, it's also too, you got to, I think there's other guys in the league that are like Deebo Samuel. I mean, he's riding confidence right now, but to say like Deebo Samuel is like that much different than Aaron Jones is probably not accurate. You know what? Do you never watch like basketball and a guy goes from a team where there's like 4 superstars And then he goes to a team where there's none, and all of a sudden he's an all-star and he's averaging 30 a game, and you're just going like, man, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that with him, where they needed a guy to make plays, and you can't really depend on Garoppolo to get Kittle the ball all the time.
Yeah.
So they needed this guy, and they're like, gosh, he can kind of do everything. Let's just start building around him, and he just becomes better and better and better, and he gets more touches, he's more involved in the offense, and it just starts happening, right?
Yeah.
And so he's at this stage, you kind of ask yourself, like, how do you shut them down, right? We already talked about it. You really want Garoppolo to lose the game for them. That's what you're hoping for. So what do you want to take away? Well, you got to figure out a way when he's not in the backfield to get doubles, when he is in the backfield to make sure you have your eye on him. And then you have to find a way playing that. Are we going to be able to play that cover 2 and rush 4 so you can at least bracket Kittle a little bit? Because as good as our linebackers have been, that guy's a real tough matchup.
Yeah, for any team, he's not gonna be shut down ever. So it's just like, can you limit it to under 100 yards and 2 touchdowns at least from preventing the game to be just completely taken over. Before we get to Kittle, let's talk about Elijah Mitchell. He's the leading rusher among all teams this postseason. Obviously, just one weekend, so nothing crazy, but he's a leading rusher. So obviously, somebody to mark down as a playmaker. Running behind the horses, Trent Williams, Tom Compton at tackles, Alex Mack, who we were talking about earlier at center, guards Tomlinson and Brunskill, and then obviously George Kittle, the best tight end in the game. What makes Elijah Mitchell's game seem so fluid and effective?
I think Elijah Mitchell is a good pro. I don't think you're not talking about Barry Sanders by any means. He's a good pro. He runs hard, and with their offense and the way that they execute, there's a couple of things that are kind of interesting to watch, I think, from a fan perspective. The first is they're really good, especially when you're running away from Trent Williams. He's super effective at holding that backside 3 technique. And sometimes I literally mean he's holding, but he creates that backside gap for the cutback. He'll hold the guy. He's really good with this. He's good at hand fighting. He doesn't necessarily cut him off, but he makes sure that he's not going to be involved in the play. And they cut backside a lot when they run to the right. Yeah. And then the other thing is Kittle's an extremely skilled blocker. Trent Williams is like Larry Allen, ferocious when he gets angry, or like when he decides he's going to go and hit somebody. He's like one of those guys that defensive end might get the flu, instead of trying to play him. And so he can move humans. And I think honestly, it just, whether it's their misdirection, whether it's just the eye discipline you have to have, where they run that stretch where they hold it for a little bit, but they also have they keep passing the backside that holds that backside linebacker. Like, they just have a system that. Usually the problem with the system that they're running is that you can't get the hard yard, right? You can run sideways, you can do all this eye candy stuff, and you can get these yards in chunks. But when it comes down to it, you really can't get the hard yard. But especially with their left side, they brought in Alex Mack. They have Laken Tomlinson, who's a great player, and then they have Trent. You can get that yard now because of the personnel that you have, and that really has been a game changer for that offense compared to maybe what they were in years past, or what that scheme has been over the past 10 years. It's a very good scheme to get chunks, but if it's 3rd and 1, you need it. It used to be really hard because you're always running sideways. Guys are playing in your backfield, but with the personnel they have, they don't really have that problem. Yeah,
not an issue, really. Speaking of George Kittle, you and I agreed last show that he is the best tight end in the game. True tight end. We put Kelsey and Waller in the category more of those receiving tight ends, but guys like Mark Andrews, Kittle, they do it all from blocking and receiving. I've got a feeling, and the feeling is probably going to be 100% correct. Kyle Shanahan's going to draw up some pretty nice plays for Kittle, especially after he saw what Mark Andrews did to us. Who on our defense can guard this guy? Are we going to, like you said, play cover 2 and kind of bracket him? What kind of D do we have to play to, like you said, he's going to get his, just to kind of limit him? There's no stopping him.
Yeah. So if you think about all the motion they run, what is motion really problematic for? It's problematic because you have to communicate when you're playing zone, but you also have to chase when you're playing man. And like, for example, if we're in a man defense and I'm a linebacker and all of a sudden like my slot guy switches sides, like my responsibilities might change a little bit in the run game. And so I would think that we probably stick to our zone. So who can cover him on man? I don't think we have anybody that can really cover him. And my guess is, given that they shut him down. Like yesterday, he didn't have a catch, I think, until like the 3rd quarter. I mean, he was maybe one catch in the 3rd quarter, right? Like, he's not getting a lot of balls. Against us, they were doing the inside handoff, and they try to get him involved in some different ways because he's that talented. But again, it's a pick your poison league, right? Like when you have multiple guys that are productive like they do, you can't really take all the guys out of the game. And so, you're just trying to – I think we're going to do the same thing we always do. We're going to try to get home with 4. We're going to try to play deep, and we're going to try to keep people in front of us. And if guys have the opportunity because Garoppolo floats one, we just have to come down with the ball. Yeah. We did it last time we played him, and I think the formula really honestly doesn't change.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Tight ends, they've always given us a problem, I feel like, but guys like Andrews and, they give everyone like a problem. There's no recipe to stop them. It's just, like I said earlier, keep them from wrecking the game, because obviously we know firsthand from experiences in the playoffs 2 years ago, or even just playing him in the regular season 2 years ago, he can be a problem. So let's take a look at Jimmy. Since week 8, I found this pretty surprising. Among all quarterbacks, he ranks 3rd in passer rating, 2nd in completion percentage, 1st in yards attempt, 2nd in adjusted yards per attempt. I don't really know the crazy meanings behind a couple of those. Mm-hmm. But how do you look, how do the Packers look at Jimmy G? Is he a legit threat? Is he a game manager who gets the ball to his playmakers? What do you think they make of him?
Well, I think there's a couple things that you touched on there, right? Like one with Mark Andrews, just to go back, what happens a lot is, you put together your play sheet as a coaching staff and things that you feel good about, and you go into the game, you kind of see what they're doing, and you kind of get in this rhythm of like, I'm going to feed this guy, I'm going to feed that guy. A lot of guys don't do a great job of feeding everybody. Right. And one thing Shanahan, I think, does pretty well is like everybody eats on their team. But if they find a weakness, they're going to exploit it, and then they're going to go somewhere else, and they're going to try to come back to it. So that is a hard part for the defense. And the key to that, obviously, is Garoppolo being able to identify what the coaching staff wants. Like, why are we calling these plays? He has his progression he's going through. Is he picking the right side? If it's a man or zone read, is he picking the first? All of those questions kind of are always the ones I think with Garoppolo that need to be answered almost on a week-to-week basis. Like there's weeks that he proves that, and there's weeks that he doesn't. Yep. From a leadership standpoint, sometimes he's not like the most fiery guy in the world. So there's always kind of that look on his face where I'm never really sure how into it he is, where that I'm sure that he is into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, with him, I think from the Packers perspective, look, the guy throws a good ball. Yeah. He's been on winning teams. He's been a part of success. The Niners are a really good offense when he's in the lineup. There's just, he makes like the difference between a guy like that and a guy like we got is that, or a guy like Tom Brady, or a guy like, top 5 player in the league, is that Garoppolo seems like he can make most of the throws in the league. He might not be airing the ball like some of these guys, but he can make most of the throws. He's mobile. He's extremely intelligent, but he has these moments where it's like, if you rattle him, he's going to give up the bag. He gave it up yesterday, not only with throwing the ball, but some of the execution of the offense. Yeah, and so you just kind of have to go, listen, I know if we get in this guy's face, if we keep rattling him, he's going to give up the bag. He did it last time we played him. Kenny Clark bull rushed the guard right into his face. He almost threw it to Devondre Campbell like the second series of the game. Yeah. It happens. The deep ball, I think that Amos or Savage picked off right down the middle. Like he'll give it up. You just have to keep pressuring him. You have to be consistent and persistent, and you're just waiting for those opportunities to make plays against guys like him.
Yeah, just keep going at him. On the other side of things, in the second half yesterday, he went 5 of 11 passing, 39 yards and a pick. And in the fourth quarter of his 4 playoff starts combined, he's 9 for 20, 93 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a rating of 19.4. So basically, at the end of games, he can't be really counted on. Is what that.
But that tells you something else too, right? Because they're going into that fourth quarter with the lead, right? And so, what is that like? If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, what does that tell me about my coaching staff?
Yeah,
they probably don't. They don't trust me, right?
Trust him.
And I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that out loud, but it's like it has to wear on you a little bit because he's won games in the fourth quarter too. But with those kind of stats, with that kind of situation, and how much success they had in the first half, if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I have to be thinking like, do these guys they want me to finish out the game or what? Like, what are we doing?
Next thing is like he's probably thinking like, I kind of want to prove to them that they can trust me, and then whether he does overthink or overdo something or get a little anxious on the 4th and inches, and then all of a sudden, he wants to go win the game, and then all of a sudden it's a false start, and they're punting, giving the Cowboys a chance to go win the game. So we know he's going to give us chances to take the ball away. We just got to capitalize. Darnell Savage, the Vikings game, plenty of opportunities. Just couldn't come down with the ball. I feel like that's what you said. It comes down to that, and we're going to have the guys to do that, especially with Jair back, maybe Z. You think Z's got a good chance to play this week? I know he practiced a little bit last week. What is the vibe around him? He was apparently away from the team for a while. It was pretty quiet. Nobody was really asking any questions. So it seems like it's kind of one of those things where it's like my guess is as good as yours. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the question. If you think you're going to get better medical help somewhere else, or for whatever reason you make the decision that somewhere else is better for your recovery, then you just have to, as a player, you have to go make that choice.
Yeah.
It's not always the popular choice, but when you're winning, that it's quiet because it doesn't pop up because we're winning games. Those other guys are playing extremely well, and so now, listen, he's a team leader. I remember when they brought him in, he was kind of identified by the guys in the building that I know. Kind of identified a singular moment. Wasn't really the hiring of Matt LaFleur. It was bringing in Z and what he brought from a leadership standpoint and the culture he brought from being at the Ravens, and kind of what all, like, how we were supposed to do things, how we were supposed to go about business, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He was a huge difference maker and a sea change guy in that locker room and on the practice field. So he's a leader there. He's going to be welcomed back with open arms. If he has an opportunity to play, you're sure he's going to play. And he's the kind of guy that, just from an athletic standpoint and his knowledge of the game, you can guess that he's going to be able to make an immediate impact.
Right.
Whether it's just testing scheme, right, or actually making some plays, putting some hits on the quarterback.
No, I'm with you. All right, Mike. This is good. Any last words you wanna put in here before we close it down?
No, I think this is going to be there's going to be a great game tonight. We're talking, the Arizona and the Rams game. I think that's going to be a super exciting game. I got Arizona winning that for all the reasons that I think everybody else says. And this is honestly, of all the teams that we could be playing, I probably, except for Tampa, I kind of feel the worst about this team. Like, I think this is a legitimately good team. This is that team that's going to travel well. They play very physical. Offense and defensive fronts are good. And it's going to be a great game. I have the Packers winning this game, but it's not like, this isn't a cakewalk. I'd actually feel a lot better if some of the, either the two teams tonight were coming up instead of these guys.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Out of the four that we could have played, I probably would have been Eagles. We talked about the running game, whatnot. Obviously, they didn't belong there. Eagles, Cardinals, Rams, 49ers, really. Those last two maybe flip. You can flip flop either way because you never know if Stafford's going to come out and have a great game. But it's the same thing with him and Jimmy. They make these questionable plays or throws or whatever decisions that just really wreck the game. Go ahead. You got something?
Well, I was just going to say, I think the difference between those two, obviously, Stafford's probably more talented, right? But the difference between those two and what I love about these playoffs is that the offensive line for the Niners is the leader of their offense. It's not Jimmy Garoppolo. Right. They're like Matt Stafford. We're not talking about I can only name one guy or two guys on the Rams offensive line. They're just not a very good line. Yeah, but this is a good line, and because they're a good line and because they can dominate in the run and pass game, this is why it's a good matchup. I mean, and NFL football is coming back to what happens in the trenches. It matters now. This matters again. Our team is good because of one obvious person, but we are why is everybody so excited about this year? Because our D-line's killing it. Yeah. Because Campbell came in, he's all pro. Our trench guys, our box players are playing so well. Our running game's good. It's exciting again. If you're an old school, just love ground and pound football, man. This is an exciting time to be a fan. I'm jacked, man.
Oh yeah, it's the way it should be. I'm not a betting guy, but I came up with some over-unders for a few guys. I tried to look it up online. I don't even think they've got them out there yet. So I made them up on my own. Why not? So you ready? I'm gonna say what it is. You just tell me over under. Rodgers over under 260 passing yards.
Over.
Devontae over under 95 receiving yards.
Over.
AJ Dillon over under 55 rushing yards.
Under.
All right, switch things over to the Niners. Jimmy G over under 1.5 turnovers.
Over.
I could have said picks, but fumbles and interceptions. George Kittle over under 105 receiving yards.
105? Ooh, that's a big number. I'm going to say under.
Deebo Samuel over under 42 rushing yards.
I'm going to say over. Yeah,
Over. Yeah.
I'm worried
See,
about him.
I'm with you there. Rodgers, I got the over 260. Devontae, over 95, because I feel like if Rodgers throws 300, at least a third of those has to be to Devontae. But you never know, because Cobb's going to be back, hopefully. Lazard's been coming on.
Listen, you have an embarrassment of riches over there right now.
Aaron Jones in the pass game. If A.J. Dillon's going to be in the backfield a lot, it's just 95 is a lot, but it's like it seems like we talked about a few weeks ago. He comes out and it doesn't even get noticed. He has 120 yards, 10 catches, and a touchdown or two, and it's like, just another game.
Dude, and Aaron Jones, I know Aaron Jones has been a little bit banged up with his knee, and it seems like they've been saving him over. I feel like they've been saving him for the playoffs for like 6 weeks. So I plan on seeing him a lot. Like I would hope that he's in the game a lot because he's the kind of guy that gives them problems.
Yeah. 20, 30, 40-yard plays on any given. I mean, A.J. Dillon, he's a beast, but he's pounding for 5, 10 yards at most usually when you need him, and that's super important. But Aaron Jones, I mean, he's like a top 10 playmaker. Yeah. So I'm with you. Jimmy G over under 1.5 turnovers. I'm going to go over with 2 picks or a pick and a fumble. I mean, I feel like that's super doable. George Kittle over under 105. I'm going to go over. I don't know why, but
so Tom Compton, that right tackle is not their starter either. They have a good player from Notre Dame. You got hurt, McGlinchey or whatever.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that guy's a real good player. And so the fellow that's playing over there right now, like he might be doing a good job, but I would be shocked if Gary or Preston or Z, I would be shocked if they don't get home.
Yeah. And if they get home on a fumble or everything, that's why I'm kind of going with that. So, and then Debo over under 42. Well, it takes one play for that to be, right. Whether it's 20 or 30 yards early, and then all of a sudden, he does 2, 3, 4, 5 more carries, and that's done for. So, all right, Mike, you got any sort of prediction for Saturday, like score, what type of game it is, what player is going to have a big game or anything like that?
I'm terrible at predicting scores. I would say this. I think that the trend continues that Aaron Rodgers comes out and just basically is the difference in this game. You're going to see. I really am excited to see the matchup between Kenny Clark and the interior of their offensive line. And let me bring in like Dean Lowry with that too. But Kenny Clark, the dominance that he showed the first time around against these guys was awesome. The way that Deebo Samuel's playing now is going to make an impact on how we call defenses and where our eye discipline goes. So I would see because of that, George Kittle probably has a pretty decent game. Gosh, man, I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, me too. They have it at like 4.5, I think. Packers favorite. So I'd say that's pretty fair. I'll go score and who's going to have a big game. I think it's going to be a good game. Like you said, pretty close. Last time around in week 3, we started hot, let them back in it. Both teams changed/evolved since then. I expect the same type of game, though. We put some points in the board in the first half, and then, second half, you come out from halftime from being warm and it's a little cold. Maybe slow up a little bit. We put some point, ultimately finish strong, though. Packers 31, Niners 23. I think that's fair. Maybe I kind of feel good there. 30. I feel like we're going to score 30 points.
I'd say that we're in 30 points makes sense. Like that, put a 3 in front of that makes a lot of sense.
So my under the radar guys I like to predict all the time. Darnell Savage. He hasn't had the best of year, but he's been around the ball a ton. He's been around the ball a ton.
Man.
I think this weekend, and it doesn't mean he's got to have a crazy lockdown game for everything he does, but if he has a pick or two, and if he has 2 picks, doesn't matter when they are, but if he has a pick late in the game or whatever type of turnover play, maybe that kind of a
Darnell Savage. Here's a serious question.
Yeah.
When you pick the guy, George Kittle or Deebo Samuel's running down the channel.
Okay.
Darnell Savage has to stop him.
It ain't happening.
What happens? What happens?
Darnell probably over pursuits. Either of them cut back inside and they go for an extra 10 yards. And then Adrian Amos comes and saves the day like always.
That's right. Game saver.
Like
dude, it's tough, right? Because like the guy's a pro and we want you like, let's go. You got it this time. Damn it, you come back, you're tracking the wrong hip again.
It's tough because I loved him and he seemed like he did great his sophomore year, and then it's like, and
I wish he would go. There's these private gyms that guy athletes go to now, and I feel like he needs to go transform his body and add like 15 pounds of like body armor and just become, because he's a good athlete. He's just honestly he's kind of small.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know if that plays in, and I'm being serious when I say this. I don't know if that plays into his psyche or not. Okay. Like the way because sometimes the way he's hitting people, I'm like, yeah, maybe you need 15 pounds might do you a lot of good, bud.
I was gonna say it doesn't seem like form tackles. It seems like kind of not cop out tackles, just kind of I'm going for the easy shit.
You're tucking your shoulder in.
Yeah.
Right. You tuck your shoulder in. You're protecting yourself.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That may come back to bite me by. I feel like stars are made in the playoffs, are they not?
Yeah. But we already have ours.
Yeah, we do. All right, Mike. You ready to close this thing down?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thanks for everybody tuning in, commenting. Really appreciate it. Check out Mike's social channels. I put them in the description of the video below. Enjoy the week. You never know when football season comes to an end quick. So just enjoy the week. Enjoy every single day. Soak up all the content you can. Talk with all the Packer fans you can, and just enjoy it. So for Mike and myself, we will catch you guys later. Thank you.